Oh, see, that was a reference to the episode that we've not listened to yet.
Yes.
Now I understand.
It's this timeline thing again. I feel like I'm in Back to the Future, the musical, the whole time.
Yeah. Ellie.
Hey there, Andrew Pugsley.
Hello, you said that very seriously.
Well, I just wanted to get it straight because we've got a lot of Andrews in the room this month.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. Our guest this month on the Showstopper podcast, our monthly chat to amazing people from the world of musical theatre, comedy and improv, is Andrew Pepper.
What a fantastic person Andrew is. Just so interesting. What an insightful interview into the world of cabaret and musical theatre.
He does it all.
He's got fingers in all sorts of pies, Governor. In fact, I worked with him on Mary Poppins, which we'll talk about in the interview back in the day.
How have you been, Ali?
Oh, I've been really well, thank you. Yeah, I've just come back from a little away break where I met some chickens, so that was really nice.
Now, let's just pause here. You went on an away break to meet some chickens.
I didn't go there to meet some chickens. That'd be ridiculous.
Okay, just a happy coincidence.
Absolutely, and there they were, and we just had a lovely time, and I fed them some corn, and it was all very wholesome indeed.
Where does one go to accidentally meet chickens and have a great time?
We went to Sudbury to a little house there, and it was very enjoyable indeed, and just what the old ticker needed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and how about you? How have you been?
I've not met a single chicken, and I've also had tonsillitis.
So the opposite end of the chicken scale, really?
It is the very opposite of feeding a chicken, is having tonsillitis.
Oh,
it's not very nice. I caught it from my daughter. Ghastly thing. You shouldn't have daughters.
No, of course. The daughter was the ghastly element. How could I have been so silly?
Of course, she's lovely. Two things are brought to mind. One, if you can hear my voice is a little scratchy in this month's episode, that's why, because I had tonsillitis. And magically, might also be the case in next month's episode. Who knows? As if they were all recorded on the same day. But never mind that. That's completely irrelevant. But you talking about feeding chickens reminded me of our director, the great Adam Megiddo, showing us a picture of him feeding capybaras.
Yes, the cutest animal on earth.
I showed that picture to my wife and she said, I have to do that. She said it in capital letters. She was so excited. I've not yet taken her to feed capybaras.
That would be a lovely experience, wouldn't it?
It turns out you can just do that.
Yeah, I mean, there are all these things that you can do in the world that are so simple but bring so much joy.
Now you're an adult. You can do what you want.
I know, who knew? It's just the possibilities are endless. And like the show that we'll probably make up this evening at some point.
Yeah. If you had to choose an animal, out of any, obviously chickens, great experience. Capybaras, very cute. Number one animal to have a feeding experience with, what would it be?
I think it would be baby pandas.
Oh, good choice.
Do you think?
Baby pandas. Oh, of course, yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think big pandas would be a bit much, wouldn't they? They'd probably snap you in half like bamboo.
Yeah.
But baby ones, I mean, it's just
they're very naughty.
Are they?
Yeah.
All the better.
Have you not seen those pictures of workers in big Chinese zoos trying to do some work in the panda enclosure and then move the baby pandas out the way and then they keep crawling back and like start crawling up their legs and stuff and they'll come on, put me down here and all those.
That sounds like me in scenes.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Just like, will you please leave the stage, Ali?
It was fun, but now we've got work to do.
We're trying to do something amazing here and you keep coming on and crawling up our legs. Just stop it. What about you? What would your animal be?
I'm not sure I can top baby panda. Unless it's some kind of mythical animal.
So we're basically going somewhere to meet some baby pandas and then going straight to Stranger Things.
Yeah, fine.
Well, there's a lot of amazing theatre happening in London at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah.
With things like Stranger Things popping up and all these amazing cult classics.
I wanted to see, Sarah Snook's one-woman performance of the Picture of Dorian Gray.
Oh, yes.
Getting rave reviews. And I know no one wants to hear a ticket price rant, but I looked up the prices of tickets and oh my God, I love theatre. Here we are on a theatre podcast. It is my profession, but it's never going to be worth it if for a couple you have to spend 700 quid on a night at the theatre. Can't ever be good enough to justify that money.
No. Unless you were actually taken to the streets of Paris watching Les Mis,
in the middle of barricades.
The Peasants' Revolt, yeah.
Yeah.
It would. That's the only way if it was actual.
Yeah, it's actually a time travel experience.
I mean, that's worth 700 quid, isn't it?
Sure. I mean, probably worth more, to be honest.
But when you're not doing that, any other time,
yeah.
It's just not cool.
It's not cool.
It's not cricket.
No.
Well, a good thing that, some theatre prices like our show are very reasonable indeed.
Very, very good point. We don't charge 300 quid a ticket.
And you can choose where you go because the audience give the suggestions.
Very true. It's very true.
There you go. That's why Showstopper's the best show in town.
Good. Always bring it back to an advert, Ali.
Yeah, I like to do that. You know, bums on seats and all that.
Yeah, great. This episode was recorded backstage before one of our West End gigs. We had the amazing Showstopper MD Chris Ash both playing in the song, but also joining us for a chat in the episode as well.
Yeah, so lovely. Really nice to get some insight from Chris. And they had so much to talk about in terms of their process, Chris and the brilliant Andrew Pepper.
Let's have a listen.
All right.
Welcome, Andrew Pepper.
Hello.
Hello.
Great to have you here, Andrew.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And also in the room, Showstopper Assistant Musical Supervisor, Chris Ash. Welcome.
Hurrah, and
Hello.
welcome, Chris. How long have you been with Showstopper, Chris Ash?
Since the beginning, I think, whatever the beginning is, it gets a bit like, you know, the Big Bang, where there are lots of theories about when did it actually go off. Yeah, I was definitely around. So James Lovelock and myself, I think, were there in the very early days. And I can't remember who played for the very first show, but it was definitely one of us. So there's a...
It might or might not have been you.
Indeed. Yeah.
Amazing.
They do sort of merge, don't they, after a while?
Yes.
What musicians?
Well, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
one big conglomerate of talent.
Andrew Pepper, you
Hello.
have just come back from playing the amazing role of Hysterium in Stephen Sondheim's A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, the Lido in Paris.
I have.
What was that like?
All the feels. Where to start?
All the feels. Some of the feels aren't good.
Well, yeah, that's theatre, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's always, no, it was fantastic. It was many, many dreams come true. I've wanted to live and work in Paris forever. In fact, bizarrely, I went to the Lido almost exactly a year before. No, hang on, where are we now? Who am I? I went to the Lido last January, so what is that, January 2023, and they were doing a production of Cabaret. And I remember going into the box office, and it was like the longest exchange I'd had in French with anyone. I only went to Paris for 2 days. I sort of marched up to the box office. So I'm going off topic here. I went up to the box office and went, "Bonjour, je voudrais un billet pour ce soir pour Cabaret, s'il vous plaît." And the lady went, "Would you like to pay this much money?" But then she was very sweet and said, "We can do this in French if you want." But anyway, we ended up having a sort of trying a conversation in French, and it was all very lovely. And I went to see Cabaret. And I remember leaving and sort of just standing outside the theatre on the Champs-Élysées going, "Yes, I want to work here. I want to work here." And then about, I think 3 months later, I got the job. And then 6 months later, started the job. So yeah, so now just almost a year after that, I've just finished the job. So come through, manifestation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It works sometimes.
The universe heard you
Yeah.
and gave you your wish.
So, but I mean, prior to that, I'd wanted to live and work in Paris for about 20 years. And I have now. And it was, Paris is just the best.
Did you were your digs close to the theatre? What was life like as an actor there?
So I had my own flat in the Marais, which is on foot. It was exactly an hour door to door. On tube, it's like 10 minutes.
Right.
And the not tube, on the metro. And the metro stop is literally right outside the theatre. And I'd come outside the theatre and look up, and it was like being in Times Square, because there's this huge sort of video screen above the entrance where they played the video trailer for the show 24/7.
Wow.
And there was a rather glorious close-up of me doing a rather dramatic pose. So I'd look and go, "Oh, there I am."
That never gets old, coming out of Le Métro and being like, "Wow, I'm in the centre of Paris living this amazing
It was
life."
sort of weird. I never sort of walked out and had kind of like the feels, but I just sort of walked out and went, "Yeah, this feels right." It just sort of felt really just normal. It was just, yeah, it was good.
Until you have like Paris withdrawal symptoms. There's a little wistfulness about you.
It's such a beautiful city, and I love its pace of life. It's so borderline glacial. It's like everything is just chilled. And you come back to London, and within 2 seconds, you've kind of like hustling and rushing, even though you don't need to, just because you get sucked into that rhythm that is London. But Paris, I don't feel that. But I mean, it's different when you live there for 3 months and you're living in an apartment that a theatre's paid for. I mean, if I went and lived there on my own, it might be a different story. But living the way I did for 3 months was great. But that's all separate from the show, which was another story. So
yeah, and can you tell us, for people who are not familiar with a funny thing happening at the Forum, what is the show and who is Hysterium?
The show is a 60-year-old Broadway farce based on plays written by the ancient Roman playwright Plautus. It's slapstick comedy, really. It's slapstick comedy meets vaudeville, American vaudeville. Obviously, we don't have vaudeville over here, and they don't have it in Paris. So the closest we have is music hall. So it's a very front-footed, there's no fourth wall. You're acknowledging the audience and talking to the audience. You're very much kind of going, wink, wink, we're doing a silly slapstick comedy for you. And it's a 3-hour romp of absolute madness. It's a bit like an acid trip in this day and age because it's just ridiculous. Like one scene I come on with a chicken for no reason other than I should be holding a chicken. And then this donkey comes on another point, and then there's a 10-minute chase sequence at the end where you've got courtesans and mad old dirty old men, and it's a sex comedy.
Yeah,
it's about a bunch of randy dirty old men.
Yeah. And it's super 60s, isn't it?
It's super 60s. And then bizarrely it's got this score by Stephen Sondheim. It's the first score that he wrote both the songs, both the music and the lyrics for. And it's very interesting. If you're a kind of a scholar of Sondheim, it's an interesting piece because the songs aren't really integrated into the show, and that's deliberate. They wanted the songs to kind of be almost like episode breaks where the audience could just get their breath back before they got into the hijinks of the comedy again. Although the lyrics are funny, but in a much more kind of erudite, witty way, as opposed to a bawdy, slapstick way, which is what the rest of the show is. Although, admittedly, I don't think on paper it's as funny as it was in the 60s. Sure. Because tastes have changed a lot.
Yeah.
But I've always loved From because it's just silly.
Yeah.
It's just silly, and I think the world needs more silly.
Absolutely. It is chock full of amazing one-liners, isn't it? It's like just like the laugh rate in that show is off the charts. My favourite one is, wait, a brilliant plan. What? That's what we need. A brilliant plan.
Yeah, what was those were great. So there's these two eunuchs, basically, because why wouldn't there be? There's these two eunuchs, and at one point, the kind of pimp character who runs this house of courtesans brings on a eunuch and is like, I told you, eunuch, not to fan the girls while they're still wet. You'll never learn, you'll be a eunuch all your life. Which is just a stupid line. And yeah, it's full of those kind of throwaway lines. But to answer your question, finally, Hysterium is, there are two servants. There's the main servant, which is the part that was created by Zira Mostel, and then in the revival was done with Nathan Lane and Whoopi Goldberg. And then there's the second servant, Hysterium. And they're kind of the polar opposites. So Pseudolus is the liar and is not to be trusted and tends to be cool as a cucumber because he just is able to quick think of lies and just lie his way out of situations. Whereas Hysterium, as the name suggests, is hysterical and is someone who has much more integrity and is much more honest and sycophantic to his masters and does not cope well with lies or things going wrong. So what ends up happening is the whole show is about Pseudolus trying to get his freedom and telling all these lies to get out of it and creating more and more carnage, which ends up always sort of backfiring on Hysterium. So Hysterium ends up kind of being the butt of everything, and it just all chaos ensues.
And you have that amazing song, I'm calm, I'm utterly calm, I'm utterly under control.
Yeah, where he's clearly not calm.
There's a tiny amount of subtext.
Yeah. If you can find it, if you dig deep enough, you'll find the subtext there, yeah.
That sounds so much fun.
It was.
And because you have had a very physical and comedic career, really, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's massively one of your through lines of all your jobs,
apparently.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we met years and years ago on Mary Poppins when you were playing brilliant Robertson I.
Yeah.
You were great in that role.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was physical. That was very physical. But this is sort of to the next level. Also, Robertson I is great because he doesn't speak much. He's just always standing in the back, listening and listening and listening and watching. And then stuff happens to him. Whereas Hysterium speaks a lot and is constantly kind of powering things. But then stuff happens to him.
And when you're rehearsing something like that, in that kitchen scene springs to mind in Mary Poppins, when all those shelves are falling down, and that must be so complex to rehearse. I imagine that a split second that gets a brilliant laugh that's so detailed and precise must take hours in the rehearsal room.
Well, you would think, but actually no. I mean, this was many years ago, but no, I remember struggling with that because I was the second Robertson I, so lovely Jared Carey had created the role, and I'm 6'2", and Jared's not. I'm trying to think. Jared's shorter than I am. Let's put it like that. And they had built the sets for Jared, so things sat at his, like where his bum sat.
Yeah,
was
sure.
where the oven lid would be. Obviously, I'm 6'2", so I had to kind of adjust everything to work with a set that didn't work for my body, really. But because I was the second cast going in, we had like 2 days of tech or something. It was just ludicrously quick,
Right.
and there was no time really on that sequence. So I remember that sequence in particular took me about 2 months to get the laughs because there was no rehearsal. So I was rehearsing it in front of an audience, and then I remember, because the show had been open a year by that point, so I went in the second year. They were then, when we entered, they were getting the show ready for Broadway, so they were doing lots of rewrites and tweaks. So I remember, particularly in that sequence, they trimmed quite a bit out of it. And I remember being really annoyed because I was like, I've just spent 2 months getting the laughs in this, and now you've cut all the material, so I now have to, and you're not giving me any time to rehearse with the set, so I'm going to have to ask for another. It took me about another 4 weeks to kind of get the laughs back. It was a hard sequence, but I do remember asking in a company note session once, going, "Is there any chance I could rehearse on the set?" I'm basically being told no, because you would have to pay all the crew to come in.
Right.
So, I mean, that was like nearly 16 years ago or something. The fact that I can remember that shows how...
And what were you on? What were you doing on?
I dressed on it, and it was so much fun because I was a swing dresser. So
what's a swing dress?
Well, there were like 16 dressing plots on it.
It's a big show.
God.
It was insane, really. It was really quite an amazing feat. The quick changes, particularly for Mary and Bert, were just out of this world, weren't they? And because of that, we had to have cover for all of these different dressing tracks. So I learnt them all, and it was so much fun because I got to hang out with all the different actors and be in all the different nooks and crannies and stuffed up chimneys, changing Mary's shoes.
Did you ever go in the lift up the house?
Yeah.
Because this whole house was on stage.
Yeah.
And there was a lift to go, because Mary's would often work in the nursery, which would be literally at the top of the house.
Yeah.
So there's a lift built in the house to get to the top of the... I mean, it was a whole house on stage.
Amazing.
A working
lift.
house.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't see the revival, but my understanding is they didn't have the full house as much. It was more of a
It was more like
picture
a picture book.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful. I loved
Right.
it. Yeah. Just because it brought back so many memories.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate on that job because I was the swing. So each time I went off to do an acting job, they were like, "Yeah, come back in between," because I was quite valuable to them because I knew all the plots. So it was just brilliant.
Was that not quite high pressure?
Definitely. Yeah, I loved it.
It's not fun that way.
It was brilliant.
Did you have any quick changes?
No, I didn't. I had one costume for the whole thing.
Probably you were the only person who did.
I think probably, yeah.
Or maybe Mrs. Brill.
Mrs. Brill, yeah.
Well, so there's a really good comedy double act.
Yeah.
And then your funny thing happened on the way to the Forum double act. But you also have your single act show, your your amazing cabaret performances.
Yeah.
I'd like to start with the costumes because I know they're fabulous.
They are. They are they now. It used to be it, now it's they. It's not changed its pronouns. It's just there are more of them now.
Great.
I just came back from Paris and went straight into costume fittings and everything. Had a new costume made in about 2 days. I've got this fantastic new turquoise ensemble now. But before that, I've always worn pink, and it's gone through various iterations. But the latest version is it's sort of like a jumpsuit. It's very tight fitting, but they're sort of quite bootleg. Bright raspberry pink trousers, but they're super high-waisted and quite corseted, which sort of comes up to trying to find my nipples. No, a bit below my nipples. This isn't going to translate in a podcast, is it? And then with braces. So it's a kind of, I mean, I'm 6'2" and svelte. It makes me look, it sort of stretches that silhouette to the nth degree, really. And then I have, I'm bald in real life, listener. But in Cabaret, I wear a, so I'm laughing because my singing teacher's friend calls it a camel's mitt. It's a, it's a curly blonde and sort of auburn curly wig that it's like a wigette, I call it. Because it's just like a little headpiece that sticks that I glue on top of my head, and I have curls. So
great.
And there's a little bit of makeup as well.
And what's your character like? Is this person an alter ego, or is it an extension of you? How does it work?
I think he's an inner ego.
Okay, great.
I think he's me. He's called Andrew Pepper. It's not like you're coming to see Andrew Pepper as Charlie or whatever. I've toyed over the years with giving him a name as to sort of divide church and state, so to speak, but I've decided not to because he very much is me. But he's just sort of a very heightened version of me. I think we all have those versions of ourselves when we're completely liberated from all our fears and we're just sort of fabulous in the kitchen or in the shower or whatever. He's that, really. He's in the kind of packaging of a showman.
That's so great.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And is it quite interactive with the audience?
Yeah, it's very. I was talking about this with a friend the other day, and she said, "Is there a fourth wall?" I said, "There is no fourth wall." I said, "It's removed before I enter the building. It's in my contract that there is no fourth wall. It has to be taken down before I arrive." So it is interactive, but it's not sort of. I'm not dragging people onto the stage, although in the past I have done that, but I don't tend to do that anymore. It's But yes, it is very interactive. I use the people in the room. So it's different every night.
What would you say, cabaret versus performing in musical theatre? Like, is cabaret your true love and you do musicals on the side? Or are they just different modes that you love to work in? Or what's your relationship to that?
They're different modes. In a dream world, I'd be doing everything all the time.
Yeah.
I'd be knackered, but I'd be doing everything. Yeah, they feed me in very different ways. I think the adrenaline rush is greater when you're doing cabaret because, you're standing on stage responsible for steering the energy on your own of an entire audience. Whereas when you're doing that in a musical, you're sharing that responsibility. So it's a different buzz. But then what I love about acting in a musical or in a play is that there's a two-way dynamic. There's the dynamic with the audience, but there's also the dynamic with the other actor you're working with. That's probably why, as a cabaret performer, I tend to be so in contact with the audience because I'm an actor first and foremost. So I love that electrical current that exists between me and another human being. So when I perform in cabaret, I'm looking people in the eye and I'm connecting with them and I'm singing to them in the same way that when I'm acting with someone, I'm looking them in the eye and speaking to them.
And how did you discover cabaret?
By being a lonely gay boy growing up in the 80s, I think.
Fair enough, yeah.
I say that in a slightly arch way, but I think I know that's the truth because I did it. When I was 16, I think, my parents bought me a video of Barbra Streisand in concert, which I laugh at now because when I came out of the closet to them, they were like, "We had no idea." And I was like, "But are you not responsible? Look at the gifts." Yeah, they bought me that. And around about that time, I was discovering Bette Midler and I was discovering Liza Minnelli. And basically those three women are the three women I hold responsible.
Yeah.
And they had this incredible concert career separate to their movies and their stage work, where they were doing these incredible theatrical concerts. I don't know if you've ever seen any of them. Bette Midler's is the sort of most anarchic and chaotic and close to sort of cabaret that I think I do. I think Babs and Liza is more concert, really. I'm going to have to backtrack slightly. To answer your question, what it was I had sort of two loves growing up. I had musical theatre, because my parents were lovely and took me to the theatre. So I was besotted with musicals, but then I was besotted with pop stars, particularly people like Michael Jackson and Madonna. And the reason I love those two, aside from the fact that I love their songs, was that both of them did these really theatrical concerts. So it sort of tapped into my love of musical theatre. And I also loved the fact that they were strong solo performers. I think there's something, I don't know if it's nature or nurture, I don't know if it's to do with the fact that I spent so much time on my own just being lonely, that I really related to solo performers. So I don't know if it's nature or if it's nurture because of something in me, but for whatever reason, I really was drawn to solo performers. So then fast forward to when I'm a teenager and I see those three women doing their solo shows, but they have they're theatrical, but in other ways. Like, for example, Barbra Streisand would weave these stories which would then segue into songs. So it was literally like reading a book of a musical, the way her shows were structured. So then I became like, I want to do solo shows which are almost kind of like solo musicals. And then I discovered Bette Midler, and what she was doing was playing with form and playing with audience expectation. So that then became like a whole other layer that I became obsessed with. So then I just started doing cabarets when I graduated from drama school, just literally booking venues and doing shows on my own
Amazing.
To no audiences.
Yeah.
And then I've just sort of been doing that ever since, but building up.
And now there are audiences.
Now there are audiences, and I have a residency and I'm every month at Crazy Cox.
So fabulous. What an amazing journey that's been.
Yeah.
So would you start with music, or do you start with an idea and then find music?
I never have ideas. This is
right,
and I mean that. I mean that sincerely. Like, I don't have any. No, but I mean that seriously, because people often say, "Oh, what are your shows about?" And they're not about anything. They're really not. Audiences think they're about things, and that's great. Let them tell me what it's about. But I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in doing, to answer your question, is I start with the songs. I find it's very instinctive. It depends where I'm at this point in my life. And I usually have about 10 or 13 songs, which I've just instinctively found. And they have zero business being together. These songs do not fit together. And then the fun and the alchemy comes with how do I make them coexist? And often it's more fun if you have songs that really do clash together. And then you create a world where these colours live together. So like I really love clashing different moods, different stories, different thoughts, emotions, putting it all together. And then, as I said, finding ways to make them work. So that includes creating stories, creating bits of shtick, creating new arrangements. And then what happens is audiences come up to me and, so for example, Jordan Clark, who was a showstopper, came up to me after a show I did about 5 years ago and said, "I love the fact that you made a cabaret about your old school." And I was like, "That's interesting." Because I didn't. But I love that you think that.
That's so great, isn't it? It's kind of what we do, isn't it, with theatre, leaving it open for interpretation. Yeah. That's why these people are on your Vox Pops and your videos on your website saying, "I've laughed, I've cried, I've had the most amazing, enlightening time," because they're able to interpret what you bring.
But I think it's because I make them do the work, like you say, because
exactly.
they're interpreting. I think if you create enough space for audiences to actually engage emotionally, then they're on the front foot doing things. So then they feel active. So they come away going, "Oh my God, it was this. And I went on a journey." It's because I made you work. Whereas if you spell things out, there's no room for the audiences to do anything.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think, the difference between concert and cabaret.
Sure.
I think if you're standing on stage going, "This next song was written by Richard Rodgers in 1934. Take it away." You've told an audience something, but you haven't allowed them to do something. Whereas if you tell them something really abstract, but for example, Bette Midler does this great thing where in a concert in the 70s, she did this beautiful monologue called Fried Eggs. And it's about a woman. She's walking on the street in New York and it's hot, it's summer, it's July. And she sees this enormous woman walking towards her with a fried egg on her head, which she thought was really strange because it was the middle of the summer. And generally the women with fried eggs don't tend to come out till autumn. Anyway, so she's telling this campy, kitschy story about this woman with a fried egg, and you're sort of laughing at the ridiculousness of it. And then slowly the colour starts to bleed out of it, and a bit of underscoring comes out. And she gets more and more serious as she starts to talk about the truth about fried eggs is that we all have them. It's just that some of us wear them on the inside. And then all of a sudden she's singing this song about an old couple who lost their son in the Korean War. And I mean, it's not rocket science. We can connect those two together. But the alchemy comes with putting them together and then the audience going, "Oh, now I have empathy for this strange woman I used to laugh at on the street.
Yeah, that's such a satisfying process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Chris, you obviously write music as well, don't you?
Yeah,
Alongside your showstopper stuff. So can you tell us a bit about your process as a composer?
Oh my gosh, I think it might be a Sondheim quote, actually,
Go on.
of the thing of songwriters or composers are, you're an interpretive artist. It's really the book writer in musicals, the librettist, who's making something from nothing or going from zero to something. And then after that, it's all interpretation. But the songwriting is sort of looking at a scene or a lyric or an idea or a feeling, and then finding a tempo or a vocal shape or a vocal temperature or something that leads off. But it's still sort of, I think, existing in that intuitive space and wondering, what could a song be? Could the fried egg song, like where did that come from and where did the tempo of that come from, and the texture and the style, kind of letting that bubble up from somewhere without trying to think about it too much.
Yeah.
We got to a very deep place, but it's time for a game. Ali, you're this month's games master.
Yes.
What have you got for us?
Oh, it's very exciting. We're going to play the synopsis game.
Ooh,
Okay.
I do not know this game.
This is a game that I made up. So I'm going to read you a line-ish from a synopsis from fairly well recognised musicals, some slightly more obscure than others. But I'd love you to buzz in for your answer. So the quickest person gets it, and there are 10 of these.
Got it.
So
Okay.
let's hear your buzzers, please. Andrew Pugsley. Bring! Very good, Andrew. Chris Ash.
Fried egg.
Very topical. And Andrew Pepper. Very nice. Okay, classic. Love it. Okay, so the first one is, you can buzz in at any time. On the fictional Greek island. Yes, Andrew Pepper.
Mamma Mia.
Very good. 1 point to Andrew. Okay, the attacks result in the closure of US airspace, diverting 38 international
Friday.
aircraft. Yes, Chris Ash.
Come from away.
Very good. That's
Got
1
it,
point
too
to
late.
Chris.
Yeah.
Question 3. The young soldier has become a one-legged veteran who is preparing to march. Yes.
Parade.
Yes, very good, Andrew Pepper.
see
So
what
that's
you're
2
doing
to
here.
Pepper, 1 to Ash, none to Pugsley.
Dear.
So far.
Dear.
Not what I would have predicted.
All right. In 1979 in New York City, Marvin, his 10-year-old son, yes, Andrew Pepper.
Falsettos or Falsetto Land or March of the Falsettos or whatever.
Pick one.
it is.
Very good. It's March of the Falsettos. Very good. Okay, slightly more off-piece, this one. The town of Denton is entirely encased within a television studio for DTV for the network. Residents are either stars or regulars on the show, cast or crew or audiences. Brad and Janet. Yes, Andrew Pugsley.
This is the sequel to the Rocky Horror Show, Shock Treatment.
It is indeed. Very good, Andrew Pugs. Okay, excellent. Okay, Philadelphia. Someone declares that the convent is in need before Dolores Van Carmen. Yes, Andrew Pepper.
Sister Act.
Okay, very good. So let's have a quick check-in on the scores.
dear.
Andrew Pepper, you're on
3.
3 points. Chris Ash,
Uno.
Uno, and Andrew
Uno.
Pugsley. Very good. Okay. In 1884, someone is sketching studies for his painting.
Ow!
Yes, Andrew
Sunday in the
Pugsley.
Park with George.
Very nice. Okay, we're getting there now. Right. While working as an usher at the yes.
It is
got it.
It's the
I'm
one
gonna
that was
bring-
just done at the Barbican.
bring,
It's called
Andrew Pugsley.
Bring a strange loop.
Very nice. It was on the tip of your
Stolen.
tongue, there,
because I was
Pepper.
going to say Passing Strangers. It's not Passing Strangers. It's the other one with Strange in the title, and I couldn't get that quick enough.
Very good. Well, it was
Very good.
excellent. Very good efforts all round. In 1943, naval intelligence offer. I'll start that again. But you can bring in when we do it properly. In 1943, naval intelligence officer Ewan Montague. Yes, Andrew Pugsley.
Operation Mincemeat.
Yes, very good. Okay, last question. Quick check-in on scores. Andrew Pepper.
Many.
Andrew, Chris Ash. Andrew Ash. and Andrew Pugsley. I think you're on 4 too, aren't you?
4, 8, 9. Well, we go. One left. Yeah.
Yes.
4.
So
Right. It's a tie break.
On a cold winter's night, an old beggar woman
Fried
comes
egg.
to a young. Yes, Chris Ash.
Sweeney Todd.
I'm sorry, it's not Sweeney Todd. An old beggar woman comes to a young spoiled prince's castle, offering him a single rose in return for shelter.
Bring
Yes, Andrew Pugsley.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, it is Beauty and the Beast.
I was wondering that, but I've never seen
If I'd
Beauty.
stayed for
Oh.
2 more words.
The stage version of Beauty and the Beast is great. I think it's really, really magical show.
Congratulations, Andrew Pugsley.
Yes,
Thank
well done.
you.
Congratulations,
Very well
coming in there, silver place, Andrew Pepper.
Thank you, thank
and
you.
bronze place to Chris Ash. Hooray! Everyone made the podium. Brilliant.
Everyone made the point.
Absolutely.
Very good.
We're all winners here.
But
Yes.
you know, I knew Sunday in the Pot with George.
Oh, that's upset him, hasn't it? He's
It's-
it's turned the mood.
The Sondheim connection. It feels personal.
I spent a lot of time as a teenager listening to that CD.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Well, we should make some music.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, Andrew? Can Ali and Andrew, can you sing a duet about leaving Paris?
Oh, lovely. Yes, please. Little town, a pleasant place as any you could be. A little town full of love and mystery.
Little town, big heart. Little town, big shoes. Walking the cobbles and the mews.
Let the Seine run through me. Let the creativity flow. Let the Seine run through me. Just let it go. Let the Seine run through me. Let the creativity flow. Let the Seine run through me and let it go.
Sometimes you don't want to, but it's time to say au revoir.
You could make a wish on that shining star.
Sometimes the end is now, even though it hurts somehow.
And sometimes you're beginning in your power. So let the Seine run through me. Let the creativity flow. Let the Seine run through me. Just let it go.
Let it go.
Let the Seine run through me. Let the creativity flow. Let the Seine run through me.
Bye bye, Paris.
I'll never forget your flow.
Thank you so much, Andrew Pepper. Is there anything you want to plug before we let you go?
I am at the Crazy Cocks the third Sunday of every month. Is that right? Yes, the third Sunday of every month. Got to sing this.
The Showstopper podcast is hosted by Ali James and Andrew Pugsley.
This month's guest was me, Andrew Masculine Pepper.
Christopher Ash was on the keys, and he's currently on the keys cause he's so damn versatile. He's here, there, and now. It was and will be mixed and edited by Andrew Pugsley. Production support from Susanna Rosenthal, Charlotte Lund, Kayleen Kine, and Ellie Grace. Grice? We'll go with Grice for something for the weekend.
Find us on the social channels. I feel like I'm on strictly.com. Terms and conditions, blah, 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 blah.
Find us on the social channels and our website, www.showstopperthemusical.com. Thanks for listening. Good night.